So just now I mentioned that less than 30 nanogram per ml is considered insufficient. And because of that, especially when it's below 20, you can actually have sometimes a bit of balance problem. In fact, below 10 is the worst that can happen. And when it's below 10, it's quite possible to have some balance problem. That means you cannot walk very steadily because the muscles in the legs are not strong enough. Then sometimes because of this weakness in the legs, there's more tendency to fall. And then the bones are also more brittle because vitamin D absorbs the calcium, right? And the calcium is low in the body. What happens is that the body will take the calcium from the bone. And when you take the calcium from the bone will have less calcium and it becomes brittle. So therefore, if you have low vitamin D, you can actually lead to brittle bone disease or osteoporosis. Okay, and then of course there can be muscle weakness. And all this makes the person more prone to not only aches and pain, but also falls and fractures. And fracture is also a very painful condition. And that's why we link like vitamin D deficiency to pain, or even pain in the joints, pain in the bone, pain in the muscles. And without vitamin D, actually the calcium that you take cannot be well absorbed. Only 10 to 15% will be absorbed in the intestine. But if you have actually enough vitamin D, you can absorb up to 40% of the intake. So therefore, there's quite a lot of difference. Okay. And also you can actually enhance the absorption because there's an interaction between vitamin D and the vitamin D receptors in the intestine. So here is an example of how the vitamin D of different people actually correlate with the calcium that they absorb. So if you notice, the purple bar are those people who took some vitamin D, all right? And then the gray bar are those patients who didn't take the vitamin D. So those who have taken the vitamin D, those in purple, they actually absorb more calcium, and then their blood calcium level is actually higher. Whereas those who didn't take vitamin D, their blood calcium levels are actually lower. So this goes to show that vitamin D is helpful to absorb the calcium in your food. In fact, if you take vitamin D sufficiently, you don't have to take a lot more calcium to absorb the calcium. Yeah. Then here is just another example of if you have low vitamin D, there actually may be less absorption of the calcium. So just now when we mentioned 30, is around here. So 30 is normal. And anything below 30, the calcium absorption is actually lower as a fraction. So therefore, aiming for 30 allow you to absorb calcium as much as up to 30–40%. But taking more doesn't help anymore. So maybe this is one example where if it's just enough is enough. Don't have to say I want a lot more. Okay. So there's an aim for just what is good for you and not excessive. Now, what are the issues with vitamin D deficiency? Well, one of them is falls, as I mentioned earlier. So this is a study that have been shown looking at the vitamin D level of different people, So when they actually have low vitamin D, notice that this is the group, there's vitamin, when it's low, less than 8 or 16, they actually walk very slowly, Then when the vitamin D become normal, they actually walk faster and faster, right? So low vitamin D can make a person walk slower. The other one is that when the vitamin D is low, they cannot stand up very fast, but when it is actually normal, they can stand up faster. So the time to stand become slower. But when you have higher, it doesn't help. In fact, they start to slow down again. So that's why you aim for normal is good enough, okay? And this is another study showing that when you give vitamin D adequately to the nursing home inmates, right? They actually have less falls because when they give 800 international unit a day to these nursing home inmates or residents, they actually fall less compared to those who are taking 600 or less. Okay, so therefore this is one reason why till today we say that for older people we recommend about 1,000 international unit, because at 800 or more you actually have less falls, especially if the person is living indoor a lot and don't go under the sun enough. And that's the case for nursing home residents. In the old days, they don't go under the sun very much. But in today's context, we know about the importance of sun. So actually for nursing home residents, we also sometimes bring them to the morning sun to do exercise and all that, and that helps them as well. But where necessary, we also give them supplements of 1,000 units a day at least. This is another study looking at a series of studies put together. But overall, we noticed that when the patients are given vitamin D, they actually have 22% less falls compared to those who are not. So overall, this goes to show that vitamin D helps to prevent falls.